Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So this is our fifth AMA, not MMA, AMA, right?
AMA, yeah.
And today we're hosting Luka Gubo, and actually he's the CEO of Blocktrade, which is a top-tier trading facility for tokenized securities. We will do a more in-detailed introduction a bit later. Hi, Luka.
Hi,
And yeah, and on my left side I have Dan. You already know him. He's our business development manager and operations managers, I would say, as well. And so today we're doing this AMA to discuss potential cooperation between our companies, to discuss the STO as a concept and what it means from the legal perspective, what its legal implications are, and so on. We want to explain this to our community, to our viewers, and we got also some really interesting questions about differences between the ICOs, STOs, and so on. So I suggest that we do the format which we usually do, and where we present a little bit the things that we did in the past, and then continue with.
Yeah, it's been a week since we last broadcasted live, so there have not been so many things that actually happened. But still, there are some things that we need to mention that we are quite excited about. Just briefly. So
I can do that. I can do that.
Go ahead.
Just to make sure, if I can get some feedback on the chat, can you hear us really well? Is the technical part okay? It is. All right, awesome. So we've added the Zcash wallet as in our streak of adding, all the large cap wallets as we promised. I can tell you we're working on Neo. We're setting up other wallets as well. I know that Monero is going really well. Cardano is moving fine, really. So that's gonna come on soon. But more an important development which I want to mention, and so it's totally important, is that we are launching ERC20 deposits. So for those of you who are already our users, you know that you can make withdrawals ERC20 tokens, but you could not make deposits. So we have improved this, and now you can also make deposits, and that's great.
Yeah, from tomorrow.
Yeah, that starts tomorrow, and as always, we're going to inform you about this development on our usual social media channels, our Telegram channel, and so on. Another thing that's happening is we have a Loopring token giveaway. So if you're interested in that, please go to our blog. You can read a post. There's a blog piece on it. You can read it, and you can join that giveaway as well. There's been a huge influx of people to our Telegram and other social media channels because of this giveaway, so it's been really successful, I have to say. And also another important thing, which is also you possibly don't know because I just wrote it down, is that soon I will be recording. As maybe some of you that watched our previous AMA remember that I was talking about engine technology, and so we've been working on this technology as well. And next week we'll be launching something really cool. I think the engine community is gonna love that. I don't want to go too much into detail, but it's going to simplify some things a lot. I like simplifying things, I like optimizing processes, and this was totally down my lane. So I cannot wait to do this recording and tell you all about it. So that's coming soon.
Great.
Also, on the more important note, you can tell that I'm in my how I'm dressed today. So this is kind of a more formal type of meeting, and we'll try to keep it really serious today. Another thing is, what do we have here? We have the payment methods there.
Yeah, another payment method is, or let me say, two payment methods are being introduced tomorrow. So from tomorrow on, people from many countries will be able to use Kriptomats thanks to Skrill and Neteller. This means that people from countries like Albania, Argentina, Armenia, Malaysia, Mexico, the Seychelles, Russia, Philippines, Turkey, Ukraine, and so, like 30 different countries, will be finally able to use Kriptomat. And using Skrill or Neteller, they're able actually to top up their accounts there via bank transfer or Visa or MasterCard or Amex card, and even the diners. And with direct integration with Kriptomat, they're going to be able to do purchases of cryptocurrencies with us as well as withdrawals. So this is
woohoo!
This is
That's nice news. I have to say.
Looking forward to that.
Okay.
So the last thing why we're also now here is, of course, the upcoming security token offering of ours. And we can say that the initial feedback has been phenomenal from my point of view, and we are now kind of preparing all the stuff for the day of the launch. I believe that, as I see it, all the information, the legal information, are also in making and are about to be released in the next days.
I was getting some questions on Telegram about our prospectus. Can you shed some light on that?
Questions like what?
Yeah, like when is it gonna be public?
Basically, we're going to talk about that also later with Luka. But
okay, then
what I can say is that prospectus is going to give you as a potential investor all the info that you need to get to make a decision of your investment, and is kind of a obligatory document that we need to release as a company who's releasing who's issuing the securities. And it includes all the details about the securities, all the details about our plans, about the company, about the shareholders, about your rights.
So where will people be able to get that?
This will, everybody who will register to Desico platform will be able to get this document. We're also going to do a short kind of 2-pager info document where you're also going to be able to get the basic information, and this is going to be public on our website as well.
An executive summary, you say?
Yes.
Is that it? Is that what you wanted to say?
Yeah, you just mentioned the pool about the investment.
The poll. So guys, as always, please join our social media channels. Join us on Telegram, like our Facebook page, go to our YouTube, subscribe there as well. But also today we're doing a poll. We are asking you, what do you think should be the minimum investment amount into our STO? We have a ballpark number in our mind, but we would like to hear you. What do you think? What do you think is let's say the minimum amount that should be that people should be eligible to invest? Some people say 500, some people say 200, some people say 100, some people say 1,000, whatever it is. Please just answer our poll and or you put it in the comment. We would be we're glad to get that information, and it's going to help us organize the STO as we go along. We would like to be as inclusive as possible, and at the same time, we would like to get people on board who actually feel as investors, as a part of our community, and so we're not really 100% sure what this number should be. So that's why we're asking you for your opinion as well.
Okay, that's it.
So this was the shortest introduction ever, man.
Congratulations. Yeah.
All right,
Luka. Welcome,
Luka.
Thanks. It's so great that you were able to come to our office. This is like a benefit of living in such a great country like we do.
That is true. We are quite close.
Like when we were deciding to do this series of AMAs in this process of our security token offering, we said, okay, let's try to give people as much insights as possible, and we saw that there's a lot of questions about the secondary markets. How will things go? And actually, I saw that people really have a lot of questions. And when we started thinking, who can we invite about that to talk about that, there was nobody better like you. So, and also when I was quite surprised when I was browsing your CV and your LinkedIn, I saw that you're like one of the few persons I know, and I know a lot of people. But I don't know many that actually wrote a book about something.
Yeah, it's a short book.
But still, man, that's nice to see.
There's a little bit of how to say, not an anecdote, but a story. You guys were in New York last year on Consensus, were you?
Yeah.
the thing is, I was like, we were at Consensus as well, and I was looking at Blocktrade. At the time, I was not aware that, you know, the founders were of Slovene origin. And I was like, yeah, Blocktrade, that sounded kind of familiar. And I was like, and I remember seeing you, and I was like, you know, you remember how many people there were?
It was hectic.
Yeah, and I was trying to get your name tag, and I was looking at Luka, it says Luka, so I was like, maybe he is. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna catch you later. And then of course I could not because there were so many people. But I saw you in New York, man, and then we didn't meet. So now we meet here. yeah, so awesome.
Okay, so of course, to start with, Luka, I would like you just to briefly introduce like Blocktrade.
Yeah.
What Blocktrade is all about, what you guys are doing, and at what stage are you now?
Yeah, of course. So Blocktrade is a secondary market for security tokens or digital securities, how we try to call them now.
We'll get to that, yeah.
And the vision here is because at least in Europe, there's 26 million companies. And if you think about it, vast majority of them rely on banks to get the capital. So if you want to expand the business or something like that, you go to the bank, you get a loan. But if you look at, let's say, to small and medium enterprises in US, they're quite more reliant on capital markets as such. So they go public, they get VC investors and so on. But in Europe, I don't know if we're so old-fashioned or what, but there's a huge opportunity to use the latest technologies, the blockchains and everything that basically enables this, that we don't rely solely on the banking system, which is not really operating well after the crisis and also before the crisis. And the vision here is that we provide the liquidity for digital securities, for security tokens that are issued directly to investors. So without having too many people, intermediaries in between to have, I don't know, again, investment banks, companies like yours can issue
administrative overhead.
That's correct. And not only that, the most important thing in my view is that you can now basically have a customer who is also an investor, which means that they are becoming more loyal customer and loyal customers are happily becoming investors also.
Yeah, because they're more vested into the project itself, because they invested their own money, right?
And this is how the future of finance looks like. You will have a lot of companies. My view is that in next 10 years there will be 100,000 companies that will do a security token offering from large to small. I've been even in touch with some companies who are already public companies in France, in UK and around the world who are thinking about doing a security token offering just because of the benefits. So what we are doing is building the infrastructure beneath the plumbing so that guys like you and other companies can issue a security token and then provide the liquidity to investors.
Okay.
Hey, guys, this is actually if you think about it, it's so simple, but it's such an amazing idea. And why didn't we think of this before? As a community, as entrepreneurs, as an industry. What do you think?
One important part here is we didn't have the reach that we have now through Telegram, through Facebook, through YouTube and everything. So if you were, let's say, 20 or 50 years ago, when you were thinking about fundraising, it was really hard for you to get the public to invest. So what you did, of course, you talked to Goldman Sachs, you talked to JP Morgans and other large investment banks who would help you out with the fundraising process by organizing roadshows and so on and connecting you directly with large investors. And from my perspective, this is a bit problematic just because of large investors who already have the capital get the best deals. Yeah. But now the opportunity is also on the small investors because small investors now have the access to all the deals potentially.
So the tables have turned a little bit.
Yeah, that's correct. And this is what we are focusing and trying to enable with all our partners, including Desico that you are working with.
So yeah, guys, we're going to be talking about investments today, and I need to put a short disclaimer on this. Just to understand that none of the things that we're going to be talking here today is not to be considered as a financial advice, because mostly we are giving our personal opinions on stuff, and each of you who is considering to do an investment needs to do its
due diligence
and research, and then make the decision to invest. And of course, like always, invest the money that you can afford to lose. That's
so whatever we say is basically our own opinion. You need to trust your own judgment. You need to do your own research and your own due diligence. And that's basically what we're saying.
Just to make things clear, to continue with, I was browsing some social media yesterday, some channels, and there was one kind of cool question from a gentleman, and he said, "Why would an exchange invite another exchange to be co-host in an AMA like this if they're like competition?" And I did answer to this gentleman, but I would like to hear your opinion.
So first of all, the world is really, really large. So even though it might look from the outside world that we are competing, it's not really the case. And even if we did, it's still so many people around the world that we can all live in this world together. But of course, our focus is on financial instruments. So we see the cryptocurrency exchange that we built, including the matching engine, the order management system, the safekeeping part of it, meaning the wallets and everything, and the settlement layer beneath it. As for cryptocurrencies, it's just for us a proof of concept. Because in the process of getting the license, you of course need to do the audit, you are talking to regulators continuously, and you need to show that you are compliant not only with MiFID, but also to all the regulatory technical standards with company MiFID. And there are quite a lot of them there. And this was just for us a proof of concept that we can show, okay, here is how our IT system works, and it's reliable, it's high availability, it actually doesn't prefer any of the orders, it's price, time, priority, and so on. So we are really not focused on being a cryptocurrency exchange. But what is interesting, if let's say Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency later on becomes a financial instrument, we'll have a mechanism to enable instantly. So
basically, crypto now is kind of an asset class. In your case, right? What other asset classes or like types of assets will you be listing or?
So for us it will be all transferable securities, meaning all types of equity, all types of bonds. We are also looking into enabling funds, so from UCITS funds, which are European mutual funds, potentially also hedge fund and private equity funds and so on. But VC funds and private equity funds can be structured just as simple equity, so it really depends. Later on we are also thinking about derivatives, but it's quite more complex to enable trading with derivatives, not on the technical side, but on the reporting side, on regulative side. So quite a lot
I think people should understand that this is complex thing, like what you're doing at Blocktrade, and you know, it's basically trying to marry. How could I say, like, or basically trying to install like recuperation in a cave or something like that, you know, you know what I mean. So trying to merge old school technology, or how to say, maybe even legislation with new technology and totally new concepts. And probably I guess it's happening and it's moving, it's moving in that direction. But you know,
it takes time.
It takes some time, right?
Definitely takes time.
Last week we hosted an AMA with Limonos from Desico, and one of the questions we asked him was to compare the initial market, so the primary market, so the ICO with an STO. So when I asked him what do they have in common, he said nothing. How do you see this?
So similarities are maybe just in a sense that you are pitching to somebody, and that somebody then gives you money. And these are all similarities, because what you get with security token offering or digital security offering is basically an actual financial instrument. And that part is highly regulated, which you now feel with all the work that you have to do, because you have to be transparent. You have to actually enable and answer questions from potential investors. This is, if you read Prospectus Directive and now Prospectus Regulation, you will see that dissemination of information, just giving the information about the company, about the people behind the company, about the risks. This is a crucial part of the fundraising process. And if you think about the ICO and what happened back then, it is basically, there's none of that part. It's just some kind of a roadmap, just a lot of advisors, and it's not actually also the prospectus itself, the document, which is the core for the offering itself. It's the most important part of the offering and the fundraising. So yeah, there are some similarities. Also the word ICO compared to IPO, it's kind of want to be similar, but definitely not the same.
Yeah, I think this is also why I was asking that question at the beginning, how much people think should be the minimum amount, because in the ICO world, actually correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I don't think there is any responsibility towards the investor. Correct?
Yeah.
Is there any, unless there is some fraud or something like that?
So it depends how the
terms
and conditions are written.
But what I'm trying to say is, let's say with an STO, we will have to manage we will have to manage our relations with our investors, and that's going to cost. It's going to cost us as a company to stay compliant, to stay within the law, to inform the investors, in the way they need to be informed by law. So that's why I was actually asking that question, because it matters. There is a certain amount where the cost of compliance can actually be more than the investment amount, and obviously we don't want that, right?
Yeah, of course. And the one part is, of course, the simple KYC and AML processes. So whenever you're investing in ICOs, like in vast majority of cases, there is no advanced KYC behind the whole process. But when you're doing an actual offering of a financial instrument, everybody needs to know, the brokerage firm and the company itself that's offering the security needs to know who is the actually person investing. And in some cases, even if the amount is larger, then the basically just the source of the funds is necessary also.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite more expensive to comply with doing an STO compared to just running an ICO.
Yeah, I mean, what I was actually referring to is basically post STO.
Yeah, there is no post ICO.
Yeah, there's no post ICO. I mean, post STO actually things only begin. I would say, right? So in that sense,
and this is, let's say, a transparency regulation is one of the regulations across Europe that governs that post-issuance phase, meaning you'll have to definitely, if you have, let's say, a revenue sharing model, which I guess you have, of course you can make the number up if you're trying to lie.
Yeah, you can just make up the number, just say whatever you want, right?
And you then pay out the dividend based on that made up number. But of course there's transparency regulation and some other regulations in Europe which say, okay, if you lie, you go to jail. So you probably won't lie. There is also kind of written in there which information needs to be disclosed. So, of course, audit the financial statements once a year or more frequent if necessary. Additionally, let's say if there is a change in management, this is something that is crucially important for somebody who is
an investor
and holding the security, and something that impacts the company in a major way. So all this information needs to be disclosed to investors, and this is additional overhead. So yeah, you need to keep the list of all the shareholders, and you need to update them whenever something major happens.
Okay. If you would to compare security token, or how do you call it? How do you like to call it?
Digital security.
Digital security.
Digital security.
Let's call it digital security then. If you compare digital security to traditional financial instruments, like we know them from the investment world, like shares, how would you compare those two?
So from the legal perspective, it's literally the same. The difference is just from the operational and technical perspective. Because when you issue a security, you can do it publicly or you can do it privately. So if you do it privately, you can have like a small number of investors, and there's no obligation to report and so on. Of course, if something goes wrong, of course you have to do it. But in a sense of doing it publicly, there's still a lot of other regulations that basically touch you in a sense that you need to report.
That come into play once you
Yes,
start doing it that way.
But from the technical perspective, when you issue a security, there are two different ways to do it, because you need to track shareholders. So you can do it either by using a so-called central security depository, which is basically an entity that has a kind of a large Excel sheet or a database and tracks who the owner is. So if you then try to sell that security, if you're the investor and try to sell it to somebody else, you basically do the transfer, and you need to update the CSD. And they update it in the database, and this is the official database. So this is kind of a more advanced model. But a lot of securities don't have a CSD. So we're still talking about private securities that are not publicly traded. And on that side, the managing director is responsible for tracking the shareholders. So now imagine how many companies in Europe and across the world track their shareholders in Excel spreadsheet. I'm not sure if Excel is the best tool to do something
exactly.
like that.
So it's not the best type of ledger. So this is why where blockchain comes in,
And when we're talking about digital securities or security tokens, it's much more advanced in a sense. When you own the security, you actually own the private keys. So yeah, it's not 100% similar to what Bitcoin is, like no private keys, no ownership. Here, if you have private keys, you are officially the owner, but if you become a terrorist, then the company itself needs to report you, or a brokerage or an exchange, and then of course the legal consequences, you will probably lose the assets and so on. But still, the
but you mean like probably there's more different. The terrorist was just an example.
Must be
like
course,
other.
that was the downside. So, but of course, the upside here from the company's perspective is you mentioned investor relations. So it's much easier to track shareholders, especially if you have a bunch of them and they start trading between each other.
Yeah.
So you can see all the transactions that are happening, meaning you have the updated ledger in real time. So the reporting and updating and just notifying everybody is much easier. Additionally, the transparency for the regulators is also a huge plus, because for regulators, if they want to see, let's say, what's happening with this company, they need to come here and ask you. And if you don't have the updated ledger of all the shareholders, well, then there's a problem. But by using blockchain or distributed ledgers, it's automatically there. So if the reporting side on
they can have it real time, basically.
Yeah. Of course, it will take some time for regulators to get
build interfaces toward
the
the blockchain, but yeah.
But the end goal is, of course, to have all the assets on blockchain, because it's much more efficient. And then we have another step, which is the actual settlement. So when I mentioned if somebody does the transaction and somebody buys the security for somebody else, and this then goes to, they need to report either the company or the CSD. When they do it in a traditional way, and there's like paper certificates, simultaneous, and so on, it's quite expensive to do so, because you usually have to have a notary involved so that the CSD is updated and so on. But here, the only thing that when you do the transaction itself, it's valid transaction without the need for a third party to confirm it.
So does this mean that secondary markets like yours will most likely cooperate with other secondary markets to share this CSD, as you say, data?
So
or is it like a protocol or a standard coming into place, or?
This is something that is not yet happening. There were some projects like.
But it does make sense, right?
Definitely does make sense. This is how, let's say, CSDs you can have as an investor. You can have your security with one broker who is a member at one CSD. But the problem then becomes when you try to, let's say, from Slovenia transfer the security to Germany or to UK or US. Because what will happen, the same way that using the SWIFT protocol for banking and for payments, it will go through Austria to Germany to UK and then to US, meaning it will be expensive. By using, and it is similar with securities. So if you don't have a direct membership in CSD in US, let's say, there will be a lot of intermediaries between. And by having a shared distributed ledger where you do the settlement instantaneously, there's no need for that. Namely, the settlement layer will be definitely disrupted. And this is now the question, what will happen with CSDs? If we take it to the extremes, there is no need for a central place for a decentralized
CSDs.
But I think they will still keep their role. They will just be one of the nodes who handle the transaction. They will confirm the transactions and update internally.
They will be kind of propagators of this information, I guess.
Yeah.
In a sense.
You already basically answered my next question that I had.
Which one?
So that was like the comparison between the traditional stock market and what you guys are doing. But I was in this question I was like referring. I wanted you to kind of describe how this process goes, like you just did. So who are the players who are involved in all of this in the traditional world? But
but I didn't mention here still like investment firms who are acting as brokers. So when you are trying to purchase a security on the secondary market, so we have to keep in mind, so what I described was mostly the primary market, where you have like small number of investors who can trade between themselves peer-to-peer. So this is not a secondary market per se, it's still a primary market with an option to have liquidity between individuals. When we're talking about the secondary market, this is where basically the public offering happens, meaning either you have a prospectus or you have to comply with the rules of the secondary market. It can be a regulated market like London Stock Exchange, like Sectra, like other exchanges are, or it can be a multilateral trading facility, at least if we're talking about transferable securities. And the difference there is that on the regulated market, like New York Stock Exchange, you can do an actual IPO, initial public offering, and on the MTF, you cannot do the IPO itself. You can only do direct listing. So I think Spotify did that on Nasdaq, and a lot of companies are deciding to do that. The whole point here is on the secondary market, when you are a public, or let's call it a semi-public company, when you are on MTF, of course, from the legal side of things, you have to do all the reporting and everything like you are a public entity. But for the trading part, the trading happens between members of the exchange. So you have a central point, which is the exchange itself, namely us, in this case, Blocktrade, if we get the approval from the regulators to be a licensed investment firm that operates in MTF. But if you want to trade on the exchange, you can't trade on the exchange itself. So you need to have a regulated entity in between. So you can route the orders through that broker essentially, but from the user interface perspective, it feels like one. Yeah, it feels like one.
Yeah, so maybe this is actually I think might be really complex what you're saying right now to our viewers, and let me try to simplify. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm giving bad advice or whatever. But essentially, for those so what Blocktrade does in a way is similar to what many of you already know if you've ever bought some Bitcoin or traded some Ethereum or any other crypto. So that's an asset which you can buy on different exchanges, of course also on Kriptomat. You can buy it, sell it, effectively trading it between each other. But in the case of Blocktrade, what you're trading is this security. So what a digital security actually means is only that you're taking something from the traditional world, you're digitizing it, and you're allowing it to flow faster between people, which was now much slower because there was a lot of papers and intermediaries involved. So with Blocktrade, people will be able to actually, once companies issue their own securities and digitize them, people will be able to sell their shares of this, whether it's equity or whatever it be. They will be able to sell and buy pieces of companies. Let's say, if we give examples, they'll be able to buy either securities that give them revenue share, profit share, pieces of equity, possibly even, I don't know, real estate, whatever that might be, derivatives and stuff that you were talking. So that's what it does. So in that case, it's a trading facility, and that's the
Yeah.
Is that somehow clear enough? Do you think?
I was now thinking
User experience, if you think about it, still you open an account. It's called a brokerage account or a trading account.
Yeah.
And of course you don't know what's happening underneath it.
Yeah.
So usually when you open an account, you have a user interface. User interface sits on top of order management system. Usually the order management system is connected to the custodian or so-called safekeeping of financial instruments, which is a service that either brokers or bank can provide. And this all together then processes the orders that you send. And when you send the order, they are processed by the order management system and then routed to the exchange itself. This is where the matching engine is basically with the MTF itself. So this is when the trade is executed, then it's reported back to the order management system, and you get on your user interface update that you bought the security or you sold the security. But from the user experience sense,
It happens like
it's instant, and
what you explain seems like base, but essentially
it's instant. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, if I would want to buy a share in Tesla, for example, today, it would be like an impossible thing for me to do. It would take so many steps, so many things
So
to do.
it's not, the capital markets are quite efficient if you're using
I'm thinking you could.
modern broker brokerages.
You could open an account and you could buy a company that actually did the IPO. But the thing is, the selection of companies that you can participate in is much smaller. So
correct.
what Blocktrade is actually bringing to the table, he's bringing small businesses, and if start or like maybe I can say startups have been traditionally raising money from friends and family and angel investors. Now with the internet and all the social media, this circle becomes much bigger, and it allows startups to get money faster, more efficiently, and so on. I had a follow-up question, if I may, regarding the. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me. So I had a question. So for instance, we have a community in Brazil and in other places as well. I'm just mentioning it as an example of a community that's not in Europe.
Yeah.
So in that sense, they're far away. They might be, with some people having bad experiences with the ICOs, and I want to try mentioning these ICOs as least as possible today. But with some people having bad experience with that, they might think, oh yeah, I would like to invest, but Europe is so far away. I'm not sure if this is, okay. Am I going to be able to trade? So how do you view this? So in a sense, how I see is that Blocktrade also allows people globally to invest into local or regional or wherever those companies are, and can be, not rest assured, but can be confident that those companies comply by local regulations. So it doesn't come. So the bottom line is, it's not about them trusting us, but it's them trusting the European Union laws to protect them. So does it? Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Really good point, because in Europe we have, I think, the most strict regulations and laws anywhere. So by being a fully regulated investment firm, also like you're doing it together with Desico, they also have the brokerage license. It basically, what this means is that the standard is the highest possible, because this is a standard set not only by the regulators, but when the regulators are regulating other investment firms who are trading between each other and so on, these investment firms set even higher standards. So if we as an MTF want to have investment firms who are members, one part is of course the license itself, but not only that, we need to show to them that we have even higher standards that are set by the regulator.
Can you tell to the viewers? I don't think we mentioned that. Where is your company founded, and where are you seeking the approval or the government approval?
So Blocktrade is incorporated in Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein is part of the European Economic Area, meaning they have implemented MiFID II and basically all European regulations. And we are seeking the license as an investment firm to operate an MTF with the Financial Market Authority, which is a regulator for financial instruments in Liechtenstein.
Awesome.
And of course, there was a question: how far are you with?
But not just you. Let's build up on that question.
Yeah.
Not just you. So I want to put things in perspective. How far along are you?
Yeah.
Because let's say if I'm an investor in our STO, I want to get. So one thing is I want to get the dividends that come out of it from the revenue shares and the profit shares.
Yeah.
But also I'm interested. Will I be able to sell that token possibly, let's say on Blocktrade? You know. So how far are you as a company?
Yeah. So it's really hard to give an estimate for that, just because we started like the first discussions with FMA and with auditors in February last year. So it's been more than a year of constant iterations and providing the documentations. I think we have altogether more than 700 pages of documentation. So that's quite a lot.
It's like Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, literally. Yeah. We wrote another Lord of the Rings, and you would probably fall asleep after half of the pages. It's really hard to say if we were trying to just get the license for the investment firm or the MTF part, it would be much easier. But what we are trying to do is to do this in a fully regulated way, so that we are an MTF, but we're using the new technology. Namely, it's a bit more complex because you have to also show a lot of things. So I mentioned regulatory technical standards. There's quite a lot of them, and some of them, let's say, mention regarding the timestamps. So when you execute your trade and when you put in an order, the servers of the members and the server of the exchange have to be synced perfectly. We're talking about nanoseconds.
Okay.
So this is quite a
challenge.
quite an effort to achieve. It can, of course, can be done. Others are also doing it, but it's quite orders of magnitude harder compared to just launching a, let's say.
So if you can, so I understand. I'm sorry to say interrupt you, but I'm trying to get to the core of the question. So obviously you're managing all these challenges and moving forward with this. Can you give like a ballpark, let's say ETA? Like okay, it's gonna be in 10 years.
Okay, it's not going to be 10 years. It will take definitely a couple of months to a couple of quarters. So it's really hard to say. We had a really good relationship. We're constantly in touch with FMA.
But it's not just you. It's not just you that are basically struggling with this and trying to get the license to do this, which no one has ever done ever. So in a way, you guys are pioneers, I would say. But there's also other players in the market, but they're also probably in a similar situation as you are. I know some of them have launched something, but some of those things are kind of, I'm not sure if it's completely comparable to you. Probably maybe they're not aiming for the regulatory standard that you guys are aiming. Maybe they were aiming just to launch some of the things, because I saw some STOs that are even giving away part of the, what I saw is some of the STOs are giving a part of the tokens that are issued are actually giving it to the team, and I'm like, how? No, you cannot do that. I mean,
if you think about it, if you have 100%,
or like to the advisors, it's like kind of they're replicating an ICO, but no, with an STO you cannot do that.
Yeah, but if you think about it, if there are actually owners of the company and they're issuing like securities like equity.
An equity, that could be
if
the
you
case.
have like 50% and you have 50% and then you have new investors, you will get diluted, but you will still have like tokens which are like an ownership in the company.
Okay.
So in that sense,
you could. In that sense, you could, right?
Yeah. But regarding the others, so there were quite a few launches of security token exchanges, and when you take a deep dive into it, you see that some of them actually are licensed, but licensed as a brokerage company. Namely, what you do is actually you're betting against them, and it's just like a contract for difference. So essentially, it's not an actual exchange behind it. It's just a broker who is betting against whoever is there trading on their platform. But there are some companies that are trying to get the MTF license. One is in UK, and there is of course some development going on in like incumbents in large exchanges across Europe and the world, but their timelines are quite extended. So
I think, I cannot say for sure because I don't know all the projects in the world. But I'm thinking that you guys are into this game quite early on, right?
Yeah. So when we started, it was, at least from my perspective, looking at cryptocurrency exchanges, it was obvious that they are like doing it the same way that other exchanges and doing it with traditional financial instruments. Namely, if we just add like one line in MiFID II, when you have I think it's Annex A, Section B, where you have described what are the financial instruments, and you have transferable security, you have money markets, you have funds, and some others. And if you just add one line, namely cryptocurrencies, then all the cryptocurrency exchanges would have to comply with MiFID.
Mm-hmm.
Namely, they would have to be either a multilateral trading facility or a regulated market as an exchange. Then you would have a lot of brokers around it who would have direct market access. You would have separate custodians and so on. But the focus here is, and the point here is, that everybody is talking about decentralizing and decentralization as such. But when you take a look at what, let's say, Binance is doing, they're the most centralized thing on earth.
Yeah,
like literally, they are acting as an exchange, they are acting as a custodian, they are acting as a broker. They're even now offering so-called initial exchange offerings, which is similar to IPO. And what is this is basically also on the primary market. From their business perspective, I know this is highly profitable, so like kudos to CZ and what he did. But if you think about the compliance and all the legal frameworks that were set in past like 3 decades in Europe, that was the whole point. We need to decentralize because decentralization as such has its benefits. It distributes the risks.
Yeah.
And you have, if the custodian goes bankrupt, okay, there are others who are like helping out or buying out and so on. If the brokers go bankrupt, the assets of the clients are separated because they're with the custodian. If the exchange goes bankrupt, still the assets are safe because it's decentralized. But when you think about cryptocurrency exchanges that got hacked, of course, just one hack happens and they're gone because they're so centralized. Even though everybody's talking about decentralization and so on. So that's a really important point to think about, that at least European and also across the globe legislation already did a huge part with decentralizing the players, because in the end everybody is trying to be a monopolist, to have everything in one place, but this is not in the
best interest possibly of the consumer, I guess. Do we have maybe some questions on our chat? So we could answer those.
We did already answer a few. There is one. Can you comment on DX Exchange, if you know it? They claim they can already trade security tokens. Are you familiar with that?
So I won't comment directly on them, but there are quite a few of exchanges that are talking about being a fully regulated exchange. But the word exchange, if we think about from the legal perspective, it either means a regulated market, talking about European legislation here, regulated market, which is like London Stock Exchange, which is Deutsche Börse and so on.
Yeah.
Then you have multilateral trading facility, then you have organized trading facility, and you have systemic internalizers. These are the only types of like official exchanges. Of course, when you have a license to be an investment firms can, of course, they can safekeep and custody clients' assets. They can route orders to some exchange maybe.
Yeah.
They can basically trade against their clients. So if you have somebody who is a regulated investment firm and they're fully licensed to do so, they're not breaking anything. But when they claim they are an exchange, it's not literally an exchange, it's just a trading platform where you are trading against.
So it's kind of a marketing thing.
It's a marketing.
A little bit, yeah. I would say.
Because to be honest, when cryptocurrency exchanges popped up, the word exchange got a bit misused, because in
we
traditional,
know, correct.
In traditional sense, the exchange is just where the matching engine is and not the order management system and everything else. So this is clearly defined in the MiFID II and other legislations.
Okay.
Awesome.
It's cool because this is going fluently and we're answering the questions as they go. So when I was thinking about digital securities, and there are a few words that kind of popped on my mind. So these words are like transparency that you mentioned so many times, regulation, security for investors, and the end, less volatility, as I see it later on. So these are the things how I see it. Do you agree with this, especially with the last one?
Yeah, so maybe just to comment on the first part, when you think about the legal framework, because in the end, the legal framework sets how everything else is done. You have in Europe, let's say, prospectus direct and now prospectus regulation, which basically governs the primary market, the issuance, the reporting, and just transparency of the issuers so that they report everything, that they disclose all the information. And then when you think about the secondary market, actually when you're on the regulated exchange, then you have not only MiFID II, which is Market in Financial Instruments Directive, which is then implemented across European countries by themselves with slight adjustments, but you also have MiFIR, you have market abuse regulations. So if you, let's say, after the successful security token offering, if you try to trade on a secondary market through a broker connected to the exchange, because you're the insider, you have to report that. Mm-hmm. So this is what market abuse regulation is, including like wash trading and everything.
So we cannot do pump and dump schemes?
Unfortunately not, you will not be able to do that.
Okay, so, no, I mean, let's put it in plain language which people can understand. Yeah.
And also, then you have also the transparency regulation, you have settlement finality directive, you have central security depository regulation, and a lot of these regulations that govern the secondary market. So yeah, it's quite complex to take care of everything, but yeah, the end goal of all these laws and all the regulations is that the small investors in the end can basically sleep smooth.
That's great.
It's awesome stuff.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned the volatility itself.
Yeah.
So this is it depends. So compared to, let's say, I don't know, to Ether or some cryptocurrencies, because it's hard to estimate their intrinsic value. So what is one Bitcoin worth? It can be 1,000 euros or it can be 100,000 euros. It's similar to gold. It's really hard to estimate what the exact number at what gold should be.
Oh, you opened a nice topic here. Okay, go on.
Yeah, but in a sense, when you have a company behind a financial instrument, then it's much easier, because if you have a revenue share, you can do a model. You can calculate, okay, if I assume that the growth rate is going to be like this, and the costs are going to be like this, the free cash flow is going to be like this, and you can then just calculate the intrinsic value of this financial instrument or the whole company. And it's much more easier to estimate compared to something that doesn't have, so like, what are the cash flows of gold or Ether or so on. So it now depends. If the business model is highly volatile, if it's highly cyclical, then the volatility of the financial instrument is also going to be high. If you have something that is like really stable, always pays out dividends and has slowly growing revenues, then the volatility, of course, is going to be low. Also, if it's a bond, it's much more less volatile compared to a stock and so on.
Yeah, you opened a good topic, actually, I think, because whole purpose of our conversations end of the day is we want to be available on a secondary market, as you already know, and that's the direction where we're heading. As with all things that we do, we try to think of all of this as a chess game and try to think a couple of steps in advance. So it's really important for us, and I want to communicate this to the community, to be to pre-list, or how do you call this? Pre-list our security token offering with Blocktrade, so that people who invest into us can later on trade this, not just receive dividends and share and profit share. What was it like? The disclaimer. What I'm saying is not investment advice, but so they can, but not only get the dividends, but also be able to trade the token itself on your facility. So that's something that we're going ahead with you guys, and we will be informing. So what we'll be doing is the pre-listing, and we are going to inform the community as we go along, as the results are basically known. But I can tell you from my own how I feel and what I will be following is actually complete compliance and being completely in line with your guidelines, so that we can actually achieve that goal as easy as possible without post STO, problems and stuff like that. So that's the whole purpose of,
Of course, and just to explain to everybody, so what we can do at this stage is basically do the pre-listing assessment. Because when you do public offering,
I was looking for the pre-listing assessment.
And when you go public, let's say on your stock exchange, there is always a underwriter or somebody who is placing that financial instrument to the market. So they assume the responsibility. When you do the direct listing on the MTF or even on the exchange takes the responsibility. This is why we need to make sure that everything is 100% clear. Not only from the offering documents like prospectus and information memorandum and where investors actually sign the paper, but also what we do in this pre-listing assessment, we do background checks on you guys.
Yes.
Okay. Please elaborate on that.
And if you are a terrorist, then unfortunately you won't be able to list on the exchange itself. And so there are quite a few of these steps that we do, basically our lawyers do, and it's quite a process. And after the assessment, what we have...
But it's not just checking us as, let's say, as founders and so on, must be also some other things that you guys are assessing, right?
Important part, it's a bit easier with you guys because you're working with Desico. Namely, you have somebody who is regulated and they are assumed part of the risk here. And in a sense, what their part is also to check that you have so from prospectus to if you have board of directors, and the governance part needs to be in place. Also regarding the transferability of the security, not of the token, but of the security from the legal perspective, if it's possible, and quite a few of these just plain like legal things that needs to be checked. And if this is something that complies with our internal rules, then we can give, of course, a green light. And of course, this is pending regulatory approval from our side. And then, of course, we can do the listing and offer trading to investors and potential investors there.
I wanted to ask, do you get already like many projects approaching you with requests like we did, and what kind of project these are? Because from what I saw is that projects or companies who tend to do who decide to do an STO, for example, tend to be like companies who are like more mature, more have something behind them, have a working product, are trustworthy. How do you see that? How are the companies that are approaching you now?
So these are not like projects where three guys are jumping into and doing a white paper and a website. These are like companies either early stage or really late stage that are thinking about connecting with their customers. This is like the majority of the cases. So they would like to have direct communication, direct access to their customers, who can be, of course, also investors, and they are approaching us with requests. To be honest, we are really at early stages of this. So there are a few companies, there are a few large companies that are even thinking about this. We're talking like hundreds of millions in revenue, and they're going ahead with the SEO. But of course, because they're so large, it's a bit slower.
It's a lengthy, it's a slower process. You know what? When you were, I wanted to follow up a little bit on the topic. I don't know who opened the topic of Desico. Was it you? I don't know. You had someone open the topic of Desico. You know what I see, guys, here. Maybe just again, correct me if I'm wrong, or if I'm giving some advice, investment or whatever, but this conversations that we're having, like together with Desico and of course with you, and we somehow form the holy trinity triangle, I would somehow say, you know. I'm kind of joking, but what I want to say is we have us as an example. So it seems like a perfect school case example, like a bookcase example. So you have us as a company that wants to grow, needs capital to grow, you know, at the same time it's perfect because it can engage their own community and have them basically allow them to invest, and as such be able to participate in the success of the company. You have Desico being regulated as the primary market and having the ability to help issue the security itself and digitize it. That's awesome. And then you guys seem to be like an organic follow-up on that, basically where we list the token later on so that people can trade it between themselves, of course within the limits that we were talking about previously. And so this seems like a really, how to say,
nice fusion.
It is,
isn't it?
But in the background you need to know that there are some other players that are still involved. Still in Europe at least we cannot go without CSDs, because the Article 3 in CSDR is clearly written when you try to list as transferable security on the regulated market or an ETF, it has to be in a book entry form with a CSD. Namely, we have to have CSDs in place. Not because
but they're somehow packaged into the into the platform somehow now, right?
That's correct. But still, there are relationships and additional costs which, in true decentralized world, it wouldn't be. But still, they play a key role in this. They still provide a necessary service, but just they will need to update their technology.
So maybe like again like a disclaimer, I'd say a commercial break. Anyone watching this, if you're interested in our STO, go to kriptomat.io/STO, and there's a link that says invest now. That link is going to take you to Desico, and you're gonna see a form there, and you can pre-register and reserve your interest. And if you're interested in what we're talking about today, and if you're a member of our community or a person that potentially wants to invest, go there, check it out. And also kriptomat.io/STO is going to have information about the prospectus and stuff, right? As well, you can join our Telegram or Facebook, even open an account. You can open an account on our platform. That would be great as well. We will keep you posted. We'll keep you informed on the status of the STO. So, commercial break over.
Okay, let's answer a question from Boris. Boris is asking how many Kriptomat tokens will be ever made, total supply. One of the questions you usually get from the ICO, from those offerings. So the thing that is exciting from my point of view about the security tokens, that actually you can tokenize many things. For example, if in 2 years we decide that our next prime target market is, for example, Africa, for example, and we say, okay, now we're going to Africa and we're going to be raising, I don't know, 8 million euros to establish our brand in Africa, and
maybe Southeast Asia or something.
And whoever invests is going to get some security from that, only from that market. So we can do actually that. So and it doesn't really matter the total supply, let's call it this way. So what I can answer to you, Boris, is that with this offering, the supply of tokens is going to be 18 million. 18 million tokens altogether.
I think I know what he's asking actually here. I think Boris is asking about dilution. I will explain to you how I view this. Essentially, the number of tokens being that we're going to issue at this point is going to be 18 million. The price of, and this is how it states today. So, and again, until we release the public prospectus, all of this information is just informative. Once we release, a paper, you guys are gonna be able to, that's the number that's gonna stay. But as it stays now, as it is now, it's 18 million tokens, 0.1 euro each.
Yeah.
So 10 tokens per euro, like that. And and we are being really open and transparent upfront. So what we want to do, we want to raise and grow raise even more funds and grow even more in the next 4 years. And to do that, we're going to need capital. But for now, we're raising, or we're trying to crowdfund 1.8 million. And with that amount of money, we actually plan to get to the next stage. As I said before, we're trying to play this as a chess game. We know today that we're going to need an investment in the future to grow. That's absolutely what's going to happen. That's absolutely something that needs to happen if you want to grow.
Yeah.
So this means that at one moment we can issue even more of these securities, and by doing so, we will be effectively diluting the existing investors. However, when we do this at the next stage, we will be doing it at the point where the company is actually, so the money invested in the company is actually increasing the value of the company, and at the same time is bringing in more revenues. So the thing is, what happens is, yes, you're getting diluted, but the value that you're getting from the dividends and the share is actually higher than what you were getting previously. So, and one other thing is the cost of the token. So the cost of the token, or let's not call it token, the cost of the security is most likely, so as I said, is if it's 0.1, maybe in the next offering it's going to be 1 euro, which is, or like 5 euro, or like half a euro, which is actually a multiplier of today's price of the security. So even that by itself would actually increase the value for existing investors. So yes, you might get diluted. So as I see it, yes, we will be raising new rounds, but we will be raising them to grow even more and to create even more revenue and profit. That's the thing, and we want to be really, upfront and transparent about it. But we believe that this is actually going to increase the value of your, let's say, holdings, and I hope all of this really happens like that.
Yeah, and this is just to comment here. This is how it's traditionally done in existing like financial markets, where companies do the seed round usually with family and friends. Then they seek like angel investors, and then they have maybe Series A with some VCs, and then they have the Series B, another for additional growth. And at each step, first of all, the founders get diluted, and the investors who get in get diluted in the next round. So this is like traditional like finance 101.
Yeah, so
and the end goal is, of course, to become a public company, to be listed at let's say New York Stock Exchange, Nasdaq, London Stock Exchange, and so on. But what we are here doing, all of us, is kind of jumping ahead and becoming public even before the Series A, B, C, D, and whoever knows how many rounds Uber had. And importantly for investors, what is crucial here is the upside from the seed round or Series A round compared to when the company is actually doing a public offering on New York Stock Exchange. There's a huge gap there. And that gap is where profits are made from the private equity companies, from VC firms, from some angel investors. Of course, there's a huge risk there because like 90% of startups fail.
They fail, yeah.
But the upside is still large, and this wasn't available to like traditional small investors previously, and now it is. And this is what we are trying to achieve, and just enable all of the world to have this upside also.
I think this is a good answer.
That was also a nice, almost a closing thought.
Yeah, maybe. So, what is the time now?
It's way past 1 hour already.
Okay, I promised it's going to be half an hour, but you talk so much.
Sorry, my bad.
So I don't know. Maybe if there's nothing more, what do you think?
Yeah, there's another question from Amir. but this is something that is going to be answered in the prospectus, and I cannot speculate now on this. It's about some rights coming from the security. And
All right.
Yeah.
Check if is there anything more?
No,
You're
that's
good.
it. Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
good.
So at this point,
I'm good.
sorry.
That's it.
Okay, you're done.
You can close.
I would like to thank you really for joining us. This was
been a pleasure.
really great talking to you, and I think you're personally really knowledgeable when it comes to these things. I actually haven't met anyone that knows so much about it, so I'm really glad to have you.
I've done too much of reading of all the regulations and everything. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm personally kind of a product person. I like to build products and solutions, and you know, I need people like you two guys to help out with the administrative and back office and the legal overhead, so I can build my things.
Yeah. Then states compliant.
Yeah, exactly. And really, you know, thanks a lot. I wish you all the best. I wish you success with your project, and of course our own. And I hope that our project is going to bring you success as well. And again, to the viewers, please join our Telegram, like our Facebook page where you are where you're watching this probably right now, or YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. Go check out kriptomat.io/STO if you're interested in investing in our STO. And other than that, leave it to you.
Just another thing to close with. We are arranging a new AMA with new special guests, also from similar world that you are coming from the traditional world of investing, from the country where they say most of the money is from Switzerland. And once we have this range, we're going to let you know, but we hope it will happen soon. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Luka, again.
It's been a
and
pleasure.
looking forward to working with you in future. Thanks,
Okay, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.